Dr. JC here, Tech and Society in the Ancient World. We're going to take a look at ancient Egypt next. Now, while we could easily spend 16 weeks on any of these civilizations, I did want to share here briefly as it relates to Egyptian civilization that historians generally break down Egypt into three broad periods, this Old, Middle, and New Kingdom. And with each of these three kingdoms, we would associate some aspect of Egyptian society. For example, in the Old Kingdom, we'll associate the creation and building of these great pyramids and pyramid complexes. The Middle Kingdom, this is a period of stability. This is when Egypt was at its height. Commerce was abounding. This was a happening place, largely because Egypt controlled all the grain, and grain in the ancient world was gold. So this is their golden age, this Middle Kingdom. And then finally, in the last phase of Egyptian civilization, we see this New Kingdom period. This is their period of empire. This is when pharaohs such as Thutmose, Ramses, and others begin to attack neighbors that had been threatening Egypt because of Egypt's wealth. So what Egyptians begin to do in this final phase is wage perpetual war in the name of perpetual peace, and only manage to, in some sense, piss off their enemies and their neighbors and weaken their own society from within, which ultimately is going to open the doors for outside invasion to Egypt by folks such as Alexander the Great and Greeks. And we'll talk about them here in a minute. Now, while there are innumerable aspects as it relates to Egyptian society that I would love to dedicate some time to, I do think we have to at least pause here for a moment and recognize the engineering capabilities and wonders associated with ancient Egypt, as evidenced by the pyramid structure and complex of Giza, the tomb for King Khufu, a fourth dynasty Egyptian pharaoh himself. The very enormity of the pyramid and the complex itself gives one little pause as to why this has long been referred to as one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. Not only has the main structure here, this pyramid to Khufu at Giza, been the tallest structure in the world for about 3,800 years, there are scientific teams, scientists, Egyptologists et al. Still trying to figure out today how in the blue blazes these folks were able to construct this type of engineering feat. Now, for centuries, there have been varying and vying theories as it relates to not only how the Egyptians were able to engineer this structure, but more importantly, maybe what's inside of it. And at present, rightfully so, the Egyptian authorities are not going to allow scientists, Egyptologists et al. To just go ahead and blast their way into the center to figure out what's there, right? We have to find a non-invasive way of doing that from a historical preservation standpoint. And one of the newest sort of theories as it relates to what's inside has to deal with physicists and this what's known as muon theory, M-U-O-N-S. It's the use of subatomic particles to figure out what's inside the pyramid. And leading teams from across the planet, to include places like Japan and France and in some sense the United States, teams have started to apply this muon theory, M-U-O-N-S, to look for ways that we can explain what might be inside. And more recently, if this theory proves to be true and the science that's behind it and the technology behind it is right, teams have been able to find new voids within the pyramid. And the question then becomes, how do we figure out what's in these voids within the pyramid? And that, I guess, we'll have to wait for newer science and technology to emerge. So as we await results and newer technologies that allow us to better understand what's inside the pyramid as a way to ultimately understand how this was engineered and created, I wanted to pose a specific quick question for everybody as it relates to this structure and maybe structures across the larger ancient world and engineering wonders across the ancient world. My question is this for everyone. Again, not anything you need to answer, but one I want you to consider. How is it at present day, with the advanced nature of our engineering, technology, and understanding, how is it that we still don't understand how it was somebody created a structure such as this several thousand years ago? Why is that? I want you guys to think about that. Dr. JC out from ancient Egypt. We will head to Mesoamerica next.